Welcome to our webinar covering third-party risk in cybersecurity. My name is Linda Hyder and I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the South East London Chamber of Commerce. So I won't keep you because our speaker today is Bryan Altimas. And Bryan is the founder / director at Riverside Court Consultancy. Bryan has worked for many years in tech risk and cybersecurity and holds global certifications, which enables him to work around the world. So I'm going to hand over to Bryan, and then he can take over and tell you more about him and start his presentation. Over to you, Bryan.
Good morning. Thank you, Linda. As Linda said, so I'm Bryan Altimas. When I started in cybersecurity, I had dark hair and didn't have a beard. So that shows how long I've been in cybersecurity. And I learned all my trade when I worked for KPMG. And since then, so I worked for KPMG for 17 years, left as a director and set up by myself. And I've been running Riverside Court Consulting, unbelievably, for 10 years now. So what has been happening, I've presented before and about how to protect ourselves. And but this year, particularly, things have started to change, and third-party risk in cybersecurity has become the topic of the year in the industry, really. And what do we mean by third-party risk? We mean that the hackers, or threat actors as we call them, access your data. Your data is valuable. You may not think so, but your data is valuable. And what they're trying to do is they are either trying to get hold of your data to extract your data from your organization and sell it on the dark web, or they're trying to install ransomware and execute ransomware so that they encrypt all of your data and then they try and charge you a ransom. So this year, particularly, we've seen a proliferation in attacks, organizations being accessed via their third parties. And we'll just cover quickly a few of them just to show you what's been going on. So you probably remember back in June, the NHS in London, the St Thomas's and Guy's NHS Foundation Trusts were thrown into chaos because their pathology lab system, provided by a company called Synovis, Synovis were attacked and with ransomware, and for several months, the NHS were in chaos as they tried to recover from it because it was a nation state attack from Russia, and they were trying to avoid paying the ransom and did avoid paying the ransom, as far as I know, to Russia. But that caused absolute chaos. The next two were mammoth data loss incidents. Both Ticketmaster, the company that if we've been to a concert, we've probably bought our tickets through, and the bank Santander lost millions of personal data records. Ticketmaster lost 560 million worldwide, including in the UK. Santander in Central and South America lost 30 million customer records. How did that happen? Well, that was, they used a third party to store their data called Snowflake. And we're going to, what happened was, in both cases, that employees of both organizations had weak access credentials, which had been previously compromised, and they were used to get into Snowflake. Snowflake at the time did not have provide two-factor authorization or multi-factor authorization. So once they had the username and password, it was a simple way to get into Snowflake and steal these mammoth amounts of customer records. Then finally, back home, the Ministry of Defence lost 225,000 Air Force, Army and Navy personnel records through their payroll provider. And again, it's both the NHS attack and the Ministry of Defence attack is a reminder that not only does losing this data mean that you've got a reputational issue on hand, and potentially a financial issue, but you've also got it can cost lives. So we can no longer defend our perimeter as we used to. If we wind the clock back 15, 20 years, all of our technology was on site, and it was easy, relatively easy, to defend our perimeter exactly the same way as a castle. Put a moat around it, that would be our antivirus. Put a drawbridge down, that would be our firewall. And you know, we can stop the threat actors getting in. That's changed over the last 10 to 15 years. So 10 years ago, or thereabouts, we had the advent of cloud computing. We then had companies starting to allow people to use their own devices for work, so allowing the use of personal phones to access company data, and tablets, personal tablets to access company data. Then, of course, the pandemic came along and changed the way we work forever, in that people now work from home. So we've also got to be aware of that threat of people working from home on their home networks. And you know, is the home network defended appropriately for company data? And of course, in the last couple of years, we've got artificial intelligence coming in, which is fantastic for facilitating and being used as a tool. And in cybersecurity, we're using it as well in a great way, but unfortunately, so are the threat actors. And you've probably seen on the common phishing emails how much better quality they are now. You know, you no longer get it's no longer so easy to identify a phishing email, because they're using artificial intelligence to write them. So the language is so much better. So how does a third-party attack happen? Well, as I've kind of outlined already, it's vulnerabilities in the software that you use. So earlier this year, the US government, senior email accounts, or email accounts of senior people in the US government were hacked via a vulnerability in Microsoft's Outlook. This was what's known as a zero-day vulnerability. So what that actually means is that the threat actors find a vulnerability in the software which enabled them to access these valuable email accounts in the US government and find out various secrets. This was a nation-state attack from Russia. And Microsoft had, that vulnerability was exploited. They had 0 days to come up with a patch and update to solve that issue. The other way, as I've already outlined, the Ticketmaster and Santander hack happened through stolen access credentials, username, password. So in both of those cases, employees of Ticketmaster and Santander had used their access credentials on other applications and which had been compromised. So their access credentials were for sale on dark web. So that once your access credentials have been compromised, so once your password has been compromised, it is exactly the same as going to buy cheddar cheese in Sainsbury's. Sainsbury's are always going to have cheddar cheese. The dark web, your credentials are always for sale on the dark web. So I had a client earlier this year, rotated his passwords, and he thought, oh, that LinkedIn password from 2016, I haven't used that for years, we'll recycle that. The threat actors are always trying the passwords they've got automatically. They're using technology in exactly the same way as us. So they're always spraying the internet to see what they can access with these passwords. And a password is for sale for chicken feed. A penny would be expensive to buy a password. 1 pence would be expensive to buy a password. And so he recycled his LinkedIn password, and within a couple of weeks, the application he was using it on now was accessed. So that's just an example. But with Ticketmaster and Santander, the employees' passwords were available on the dark web, and the threat actors were spraying the internet, seeing what they could get into. And because Snowflake at that time, which was June, July this year, didn't provide two-factor authorization or multi-factor authorization, once they were able to get into those accounts, they had access to all the data. So why is it of importance to me, to us as business owners? You don't want to become the gateway to your customers. We will all have our favorite customer, maybe a big company. So maybe you've got Sainsbury's as a customer. If Sainsbury's get hacked, and the forensic guys will track that to see where the source of the hack was. If that is traced back to you, how long do you think Sainsbury's will still be your favorite customer? I should imagine they'll ditch you pretty quickly. And when agreeing contracts with your suppliers, you need to be certain of their cybersecurity practices. So it's not just looking at the financials when you're agreeing a contract. You need to do some due diligence on their cybersecurity practices. Now, that's why it's important, and we'll cover how you do that over the next couple of slides. So how do we protect ourselves and our business partners? You can reduce your cybersecurity risk by 90%. And I know it's boring talking about passwords. Yeah, we've all got so many passwords to remember. But having a unique, strong, complex password or password phrase for each application. Do not share your passwords across applications and systems. Okay, so that probably means you've got to remember, I don't know, I have to remember 200 passwords, thereabouts. How do I do that? I use a password manager app. There are many available. The one that I use is called 1Password, and the reason I use that one, it's the digit 1 password all as one word. The reason I use that one is they encrypt your data from the moment you start to sign up, and everything's encrypted every time you interact with it. And then use two-factor authorization to protect all of your data. Again, if you use an authentication app, that will integrate, and it's dead easy to do it. It should not be a hindrance. Celebrate each month with updates. Every month, the big IT companies update their software. And yes, it means you've got to let the updates run through, or your IT company will push them down to you once they've made sure that they're okay. And even after the fiasco in July with CrowdStrike, where they issued an unfortunate update which brought down, well, the world's IT, effectively, 8.5 million Windows operated computers, and caused chaos. Well, these updates are security updates. They are designed to keep you secure. So maybe don't have them pushed down, don't install them on the day that they're released, but wait and see a day or two to see what happens, but then make sure you install them. And all your other systems will also, and applications will also issue updates around about the middle of the month for the regular updates. All of the companies, obviously, if they have an attack, and as there's a 0-day vulnerability, once they've got the update, they will issue that update outside of this regular monthly cycle. Stop the hunters, stop the threat actors having an easy meal off you. So make sure that if you're just using your devices to access your cloud systems, encrypt the internal devices. If you're on a network, still make sure all of your employees' devices, the internal drives, are encrypted. This will prevent the threat actors accessing any data that's kept on the devices. We used to talk about antivirus. Antivirus is now called endpoint detection and response for on your devices, on your computers, on your phones, on your tablets, and extended detection and response if you've got a network. The reason the name has changed is because it's using AI to analyze how you're using those devices and your network, and designing the response appropriately. Make sure either the internal firewall on your devices is appropriately configured to stop threat actors having an easy access. And if you've got a network, make sure your IT company also has a firewall to protect your network. If you're working remotely, make sure. So number one, I would say don't use the network in the coffee shop, publicly available networks, if you can possibly avoid it. If you have to, use a virtual private network. This installs a secure tunnel between your device and your systems, and it will prevent any threat actors lurking in the dark places of the public network, prevent them accessing your data again. And also make sure that your emails are being scanned so that as much as possible, any nasty traffic is taken care of. And then prepare for the coming storm. This isn't meant to scare, it's meant to educate and get you thinking. It's not about if I'm going to be attacked, if I'm going to be hacked. It's going to be when I'm attacked. In the cybersecurity industry, we do our absolute best to keep you secure, but you will be attacked at some point. So prepare for the coming storm. Back up your critical data. So make sure all of your data, whatever cloud service you're using, whether it's MS365, Google, iCloud, AWS, Snowflake, etc., back up your critical data. I would say back up to a third party who specialize in backups for two reasons. They have their own cybersecurity, so they will be scanning your data as they back it up, and they will flag if there's any nasty malware, ransomware sitting in your data. The second reason is, as the NHS found out this year, they relied, the guys and St Thomas's Trust, they relied on their system vendor, Synovis, to provide that PathLab system, but also to back it up. Synovis got attacked and all of their data was encrypted. That included the backup. So if they'd backed the data up with a third party, the backup would have still been available. Test and restore the process. Test the restore process. No point in backing up the data if the restore process doesn't work. And make sure you've got a cybersecurity incident response plan so that when that attack does happen, you know what you've got to do. Don't forget your people. By raising awareness and making sure your people are always thinking, is this email real? Is this change of bank details real? They are your strongest defense. Cybersecurity, up until this year, I said was a blend of your people, your processes, and your technology. I turned down work this year with a company because when we were talking to the CEO, he said, cybersecurity is for everybody, but I'm secure, I don't need it. And I said to him, how are you secure? He said, well, I just am. And we turned down the work because the biggest risk to that company was the CEO. So the culture is also included, because if he's driving that culture, nobody else is going to worry about cybersecurity. So how do we gain assurance over our business partners? So large companies, especially US companies, will provide a SOC 2 report. They should provide it free of charge. It's prepared by independent auditors, and that will provide a report over their cybersecurity. Anywhere else in the world, companies will also issue what is called a shared service report under an international accounting standard 3000. A shared service report covers exactly the same as a SOC 2 report and provides assurance over their cybersecurity. Again, prepared by independent auditors. Smaller companies also need to manage your risk. So when you're agreeing new contracts, you need to have a look in. You need to talk to your new supplier about their cybersecurity. Maybe they've got cyber essentials. Maybe they certify to ISO 27001 and 2, etc. You need to think about that. Or they can agree that you have the right of audit, so that you can get somebody like me to go in and audit their cybersecurity practices. So, questions. And in my contact details there, ignore the capital A in Altimas. I didn't realise that as I put it in. But yeah, that's my contact details. Is there any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead,
It's
Eunice.
It's regarding Google. You know, sometimes we save a lot of our passwords. It asks us, you know, to save passwords, and we save our passwords there. Is that a practice we should be doing? Is it secure?
It's better than nothing. But as I've been outlining, should Google get hacked, then all of your passwords are available to them. Okay. The company that I suggested, 1Password, I mean, same as Google, but they employ financial services and military grade cybersecurity around them. So yes, by all means, store your data in Google, but I would really recommend using a password management app rather than saving it in your browser.
Right. Thank you.
Rebecca, you have your hand up.
Hello. Hi, Brian. Thank you so much
Rebecca.
For going through that. I just wanted to, and forgive me if I've slightly missed this in what you've said already, but we're a new company and we currently use Keeper to store our passwords, mainly because I can share it with, you know, chosen people, for instance, like a PA and people like that. Certain ones you can choose, like if you only want them to see one password, you can put that in their file and then you can take it out again and whatever. And then obviously from history, pre being a company, I do have passwords that are in my sort of Apple iCloudy type thing. I find Keeper really challenging, and I have to say, I used to always just have like one password for everything, and obviously since the last sort of 5 years or so, that's changed. But but obviously being a new company, we want to do our practice. We want to, you know, do things well from the beginning, so that we don't have to sort of go back and migrate and, you know, all that type of thing. Would you say that changing to something like 1Password would be better than using Keeper? I mean, it was my PA company that recommended Keeper. I didn't really know much about it. And what would you say we can do at this early stage to sort of just make sure we do the best for ourselves so we don't get targeted or minimize target?
Yeah, I mean, 1Password isn't the only one. I mean, that's 1Password is my favorite. Keeper is perfectly good as well. I actually think, personally, I think 1Password is easier to use than Keeper, but it's personal preference. I do agree with you that Keeper does seem difficult. Yeah, difficult to use. But yeah, it's
And with regards to the iCloud Apple aspect of it, should I be migrating those passwords onto whatever and just and basically deleting them all off, like the other lady said, Google and Apple?
Yes,
one place.
Yeah. So yes, I would recommend not using whatever browser to store your passwords. migrate them into a password management app.
And sorry to ask more than one question. I hope that's okay.
No, go ahead, Rebecca.
Is it okay? Should we be keeping also our own copy of those away from that, in case that, because obviously anything can be targeted, I presume, it doesn't matter how good they are. Should we be keeping a list of our own somewhere that we have, as so we can't be ransomed, or whatever? Or is that not really a protection? That probably sounds really naive, but
no, I've never been asked that before, actually. But while you're small, it's probably relatively easy to keep them, but it depends where you're going to keep them, doesn't it? So the reason I recommend a password management app is because the security around those password management apps has to, if that company, whether it's 1Password, Keeper, wants to, or any of the others want to remain in business, they need to keep that data secure. Yes, they could be hacked at some point, and that would cause chaos. I would hope that they are keeping their cyber, they are employing the top grade cybersecurity that is possible. And as I said, I know that 1Password do. It's so no, don't keep an Excel spreadsheet, for example, with all your passwords on.
And not analog, I presume.
Sorry?
I mean, I kind of comes to mind old school and keeping like an analog copy of them, like a one copy for the, that you have in your, where, nobody in the ether could get hold of it, sort of thing. But at the same time, obviously, there are other challenges to that, I suppose.
There are. And I mean, an amusing story, as I said, I keep everything in 1Password. I was on a holiday recently, having such a good holiday. And one morning my iPhone decided it was time for me to put my code in. And for 8 hours, I just could not remember what my code was. Now, if I'd had another device, I could have accessed my password manager and it would have been there, but I didn't. I only had my phone with me, and it took me 8 hours to actually remember what my iPhone passcode was. So yeah, you could keep an analog copy. Whereabouts would you keep it? While you're small, how many employees have you got at the moment? How big is the company at the moment?
We're literally in the first sort of 6 months of business. Just almost one. Almost
so
one.
Yes, yeah, you could keep an analog copy, and if that analog copy gets compromised, you've got bigger issues than cybersecurity. So
yeah, okay.
But as you get bigger, it's going to become more difficult to keep an analog copy, if that makes sense.
And ultimately, we have to put our faith in something, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Bryan.
Any other questions?
Can I ask a couple of questions, please, Bryan?
Of course you can, Linda.
You talked about the 1Password app. Is there a cost for the app?
That is a good question. It definitely used to be free when I first started using it. Before I started my company, I was using a free version. I will have to double check to see whether there is still a free version available. But otherwise, yes, there is a cost. There is, you can either set it up for your company, and I think both the company and the family cost, or you can give it to all members of your family. I think that's about the same, and it's about £70 a year.
Right. So as opposed to the free version, I mean, why would you pay if there's a free version?
Free version would just be for you.
Right. Okay.
So you couldn't share it across your business. You couldn't share it across your family. It is purely for you. So yeah, that's the decision you have to make.
Thank you. Also, just a couple of others. On our phones now, some phones, we've got face recognition, identification. Is that the most secure way of a two-stage authorization?
In the world of AI, it is becoming less secure as deepfakes become a bigger issue. But yeah, facial recognition or using your finger, because it's not actually taking the fingerprint. So it is, yeah, it's perfectly secure. As I just said gave my amusing story. Most devices will say every fortnight or so, put your passcode in.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the new phones don't have the button anymore, so you can't use your fingerprint. That's how I discovered that I've got to use face recognition now. Yeah. Also, my last question. You talk about the lost contact details. You know, for example, from Santander and Ticketmaster.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens? A company has access to all this. You know, 560 million or what have you. So is this when you said they're sending out these sort of, they'll just send out computer generated search for, I don't really understand.
Right, okay.
What do they do with
it? So
sorry if I'm ignorant.
No, not at all. Apologies if I didn't explain it well enough. So what happened was, if we take the Ticketmaster example, an unfortunate employee used the same password on Snowflake, who are a data storage company who Ticketmaster store all their data with, used the same password that he had for, I think it was personal applications as well. So that password was available on the dark web. As I said, you go into Sainsbury's, buy cheddar cheese, you know cheddar cheese is always going to be in Sainsbury's. Once your password is available on the dark web, it is always available. You know, there's no, on television, they kind of try to romanticize the hackers. There's no integrity in hackers. They're thieves. They're looking to get hold of as much of your data as possible. So
to make money, I assume. It's the only reason. Is that the only reason?
Well. Yeah. So threat actors are using the same technology, has access to the same technology that we do. They'll have access to, you know, all the same technology, so that they'll have banks of computers who are constantly scanning the internet using these passwords to see what they can get into. A bit like when you fire a shotgun, the pellets go everywhere.
Scattergun.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's a scattergun approach. You know, and 99% of the time, they won't get into anything. Occasionally, they do. And that's what happened with the Santander and Ticketmaster Snowflake hack. They tried this the passwords of those unfortunate employees across the internet, and because Snowflake's cybersecurity practices weren't exactly gold-plated either, they managed to access those huge amounts of personal data. Does that explain it?
Yes, thank you. And that is used for them to send fake messages, emails from your bank.
In those cases, although they didn't deploy ransomware, they said they were going to publish all those personal records on the dark web for other people to use, unless Ticketmaster and Santander paid a ransom.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, so all those people's payment card details, addresses, etc., would have been published.
So thank you.
Yeah.
So you was talking about passwords, what to use. There used to be, I remember years ago, there was a site you could put in your password and it would say how quickly it would take to get hacked. Are there still, so if I put Linda Hyder 2024, for example, it would say, oh, this could be hacked in like 2 seconds or 30 years, So is that still something you would advise people to try out?
So I would, with the exception of one website, I would never suggest putting your password into a testing website.
Right, okay. That's interesting.
Because once you do that, you don't know what's happening at the back end.
Right. Because
there are a number of sites available saying, if your password is 6 characters, how quickly would that be hacked? And I can provide data. So if you use a password, 6 characters, just uppercase, lowercase letters, that will be hacked within a fraction of a second. If you deploy one special character in that, it will probably go up to about 30 seconds. So the passwords that I'm using at the moment and what 1Password defaults to is 24 characters.
Because sometimes when you they ask for a password, they'll put no special characters, like asterisks and exclamation marks. So then it is just
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt
no, that's
you.
fine.
And that's why I say you need to do your due diligence on your business partners, because
Right.
if their systems, they're saying no special characters, their cybersecurity leaves a lot to be desired, shall I say?
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Well, I've learned a lot. Sorry, I've asked several questions, so I'll hand
that's all
over
right.
in case anybody else wants to ask some more questions, maybe based on what I've said, might have sparked something.
And just to carry on the password, they're on my slides, I say passwords or password phrase. So the last couple of years, the use of password phrases has come up. So instead of having a complex password, you could use three words separated by a special character, for example. Again, 1Password will generate those password phrases for you, or it could be something in your surroundings. So, but again, don't share that password phrase across other applications. So I'm looking out of the window at the moment and I can see the River Thames. So it could be river. I can see a car and I can see a locker, and you could use those as your password phrase, separated by a special character.
All right. So river, exclamation mark, car, asterisk, and then
Yeah.
All right. Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Well, if that's all the questions, I want to thank you very much for your presentation. As I've learned some interesting things today. Hope everybody else has. But before we end the session,
Rebecca's got her hand up again.
Okay.
Oh no, she's applauding. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you, Rebecca.
Just before we end this session, I just want to talk about 3 upcoming South East London Chamber of Commerce events. The first one is in chronological order is the Greenwich Lincoln Drink that Bryan also regularly attends. This is a free Lincoln drink. It's based in the Greenwich Tavern and it's going to be on Tuesday the 1st of October from 6:30 to 8:30, and this happens every month. Also in Greenwich, we've got some office drinks at Grants or Solicitors, and that's on Thursday evening, the 10th of October, from 1800 to, well, from 6 o'clock till 8 p.m. And there will be some refreshments and a short presentation, an opportunity to obviously talk to the solicitors. Then we've got an executive lunch with the Deputy Mayor of London, Howard Dauber. He's the Deputy Mayor for Business and Growth, and that's a lunchtime executive lunch, as it clues in the title, and that's on the 24th of October at the Doubletree by Hilton, London in Greenwich Hotel from 12 till 2 p.m. And that's all events are for members and non-members. The executive lunch has a cost, but if you want to find out any information about our events, we've got lots of events coming up. You can go to our website, which I think you've all got the details when you registered. But if in doubt, just send the office an email and we will send you details. So I think that's everything from me. I thank you once again, Bryan. That was really good, and I'll hopefully see you at the Greenwich Tavern next week.
Yep, see you next week.
Okay, and thank you everybody for attending and giving up your time. Thank you very much.
Yep, thanks
everybody.
everybody.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.